The room is a box of winter. Fluorescent tubes breathe a thin electric hush, the kind that finds its way into your jaw and settles there. A tape machine ticks, not the steady tick of a watch but the shallow plastic nudge of reels aligning. The interrogator sits across from you, elbows on the table, hands open, not touching anything. He mirrors your posture. You straighten, he straightens. You fold your hands. His fingers braid and unbraid, slowly, as if to offer rhythm to a conversation that hasn't really started. Rapport, you think. Or a version of it. The tactic is thin as fishing line and just as patient. It doesn't pull. It waits. He breathes in when you do, breathes out when you do, a quiet synchrony that makes the air feel communal. You hate that it helps. You tell yourself it doesn't. He asks your name like it's already known. He says it once, then again softer, reducing the syllables until they almost dissolve. You answer even though you promised you would ration your words. Your voice arrives too warm for the cold in your chest. You look past him, toward the wall where the map of the valley is taped. The pushpins are not red. No one would be so theatrical. They're dull brass like buttons on an old coat. A ridge line makes a crooked jaw across paper snow. Let's begin as before, he says. Just the routine. For the record. You nod as if he has asked your permission. The tape rolls. A strip of brown ribbon leans its weight into the spool. Behind the glass you sense movement. Not people. Pressure. The way a room thickens when someone is listening on the other side. He starts with easy inventory. Where you boarded, who loaded freight, which voices were on the tarmac. You can answer those. The winter of 1982 is inside each syllable. The way will drinks the smell of Jet A. The way frost sheets a window and steals its depth. The way a breath becomes a cloud and a cloud becomes a wall. You narrate procedures as if reading them off a checklist in your lap. You keep your hands visible. Your hands are calm, you think. Under the table, your shoes tap the chair rung until you force them to stillness. Calm enough. But we're not here for inventory, he says, voice level. We're here for the moment you turned. He rephrases gently. The moment the valley arrived. He waits. The fluorescent hum seems to step closer. You try to hold the idea of the valley without picturing it. That is the agreement you made with yourself. Talk around it, let language stand at the threshold, never go in. You say weather window and visibility variable. You say ADF drift and localized inversion. Words that express doubt but not you. Yet you can feel the frost again. Not on the window, but under your nails. A clean pinching cold as if you had scraped ice from a lantern's glass. Your mouth adds a sentence you did not approve. The transmission had static. It hangs there, neither helpful nor dangerous, like a loose thread. He nods, matching your tempo. Static can mask signal, he says, adopting your vocabulary, giving it back to you like a mirror. Sometimes it makes us lean in. Sometimes it makes us invent. I don't invent, you say, and immediately hear the contradiction in the tone. Too sharp, too ready. You smile as if at a private joke to dull the edge. Humor as gauze. It fails. Your reflection in the glass refuses to join you. He leans back, gentle. What did you hear right before the altitude call? You want to say nothing, but your throat will not allow the lie to be categorical. You remember a click, perhaps a relay, perhaps the thought of a relay. You remember a woman in row 3 asking if the valley was beautiful in winter, and you said, only from a distance. You remember not hearing your own answer. The heater, you say instead. It stuttered. It's true in the way ice is true. Clear, cold, hard, and hiding depth. The tape gives a small cough. Somewhere the vent drips a slow tap into a metal tray, a metronome for the way the room refuses to rush. He mirrors your breathing again. You decide you will not follow, and then your body follows anyway. The betrayal is ordinary and complete. He offers coffee you don't want. You take it to prove something undefined. The cup's rim is dry, the liquid is stale. You hold it as if warming your hands, though you are not cold. You are cold. Walk me to the moment, he says. No pressure in the voice. No command. He leaves the sentence open at the end, a soft ramp you can climb or not. You climb. You say you held altitude at 6,000 for the pass. You say you maintained course using terrain features the way one remembers a melody without notes. You say you never lost the radio, not really, only its confidence. The valley did not appear. It condensed. Vapors becoming line, line becoming shape. You saw a glow from below. Maybe the river, maybe houses, maybe your own fear reflecting your instruments back at you. You say all of this evenly, almost clinically, until the word glow repeats itself without permission. Glow, glow. You swallow it back down. He repeats your last word, not mocking, not even curious, just placing it on the table between you. Glow. You correct yourself. Diffuse light. The coffee tastes like pennies. Which would be? He prompts, neutral. You don't answer. He does not press. Instead, he folds his hands again and mirrors the angle of your wrists precisely. Rapport hums like a low engine. He watches your eyes, not to trap you, but to see which nouns make the pupils adjust. You hate how cooperative your pupils are. You've said before you didn't change heading, he continues. And you didn't descend. He checks his notes and doesn't show them to you. Do you stand by that now? Yes, you say. Your left hand scrapes a crescent of moisture off the steel with one fingernail. The crescent looks like the mouth of the valley. You rotate it until it looks like a closed eye instead. Then help me understand the final transmission. He leans his head in a fraction. Because it sounds like you're telling yourself not to look. I didn't say that. He slides a recorder toward the center, but he doesn't play it. The device becomes a boundary stone between landscapes, your account and the account that exists on magnetic tape. We don't have to listen yet, he says. Stay with what you felt. Not what you think about what you felt. Just the air in that minute. In your mind, the cabin lights dim the way snow dims a city at night. Not darkness, but muffling. You hear a passenger clear his throat, then not clear his throat, because the sound stays lodged and never becomes the thing it intends. You hear your own breathing hitch, small and private, and you pretend it's the vent. You keep your hands very still to prove nothing inside you moves. Your right thumb taps the paper seam of the table. It leaves a rhythm your words pretend not to notice. I felt, you say, and stop there. The word is a wash of heat across your face in this refrigerated box. You lower your gaze to the brass pins on the map. The valley is a mouth again. Not closed now, open, teeth of ridgelines, a tongue of river. You felt what? He asks softly. The plane holding, you say, surprising yourself with how precise and strange it sounds. Like a hand on a door that doesn't want to open or close. Just hold. Your eyes water, not from emotion. From the overhead light, you tell yourself. You will not blink first. You blink. He does not write anything down. He lets the silence do the sorting. The drip finds the tray again, one clear note, then another. A scale you cannot play. We'll pause there, he says. He reaches for the tape and does not stop it, only touches the housing so you can hear the faint rasp of plastic on plastic. You exhale as if you have been underwater and didn't know it. Your hands are still. Your shoes are still. The pulse in your neck touches the collar once. Then again, counting time you cannot spend. Behind the glass, pressure shifts. The mirror gathers both of you without offering either back. The tape whirs back to silence. A hollow, mechanical sigh that fills the room like breath held too long. The interrogator sits motionless. Eyes tracing the condensation ring your cup left on the steel. You can't tell if he's thinking or just waiting for you to feel the weight of quiet. Either way, it works. He clears his throat once. You said the plane was holding. You nod, careful to do it slowly, as if motion itself might crack something in the air. Describe that, he says. You search for the sentence that won't betray you. The words that fit inside what's safe. It's not like turbulence, you begin. It's more like restraint. He tilts his head. A slight echo of yours. Mirroring again. The same psychological rhythm he's been using since you walked in. He wants you to relax into recognition, to feel that he's part of the same tempo. You know the tactic, and still it pulls you in. The fluorescent hum blends with the soft crack of the building's wood frame expanding against the cold. Each sound feels too intimate, too deliberate. The air tastes of dust and coffee grounds. You take another sip just to do something with your hands. You said you didn't change heading. I didn't. But the recording suggests a bank. You stare at the table. Then the recording's wrong. He leans back slightly. Recordings can lie, he says, voice flat, without judgment. But usually it's people who teach them how. You look up, not sure if that's accusation or philosophy. He gives you nothing back. Only the smallest twitch of an eyebrow, and you realize he's observing your micro-expressions again. Cataloging. Looping. The radiator clicks twice. A metronome for the unease that's building between you. He presses a small button on the recorder. Not play. Not yet. But you hear the soft rewind, the magnetic spool winding the truth backward, unmaking your sentences. Let's listen, he says. Static first, then the clipped, tinny version of your own voice. 419, holding altitude. Visibility dropping. Then silence. Then the sound of breath, yours raw and uncertain. And finally, faintly, the valley's too close. He stops the tape. The words stay. That's not. You start, but your own voice interrupts you from a second ago, looping in your head like an echo trapped in metal. You hear it the way you might hear someone else describing your dream wrong. He slides the recorder closer. You've been consistent about not mentioning the valley, he says. Until just now. You stare at the mirrored wall. Two reflections now, you and the idea of you. I said it because you said it first. I didn't, he replies evenly. You blink once, twice. The mirror refuses to blink with you. He softens his tone, shifts tactics. Rapport again. You've flown this route before. You know the patterns, the valleys, the snow breaks, the frozen rivers. Sometimes we see shapes that aren't there. Familiarity fills the gaps. You nod too quickly. Yes, you say, eager for agreement that isn't trust. Like when fog reflects light. You start to think it's ground. Or faces, he adds quietly. People think they see faces. The air folds in on itself. You want to answer, but the word face suddenly feels heavy. Wrong. You tap your finger on the table to replace speech. Click, click, click. The sound becomes its own heartbeat. He mirrors the rhythm. You stop. He stops. The silence is surgical. Then, a faint static buzz crackles from the speaker. Uncommanded. The tape still. The sound not mechanical but environmental. The room listening back. He glances toward the mirror. Someone must be on the other side, adjusting equipment. You feel the same pull you did at altitude. Unseen presence, invisible correction. He turns back to you, notebook open. Let's talk about the passenger manifest. Why? You mentioned weather, then instruments, then glow. He writes the word slowly. You've avoided people. You don't answer. The fluorescent hum grows sharper, like it's tuning itself to your nerves. He continues, tone soft as snow. You remember her name. It's not a question, but it lands like one. You try to keep your breath steady. He's guessing, but the hit is too close. You can see the letters of her name in your head, carved by frost on glass. I remember all of them, you say. That was my job. He nods, accepting it. Then name them. You start reciting. Last names, seat numbers, weights, procedural details that feel safe. But midway you hesitate. One name sticks in your throat. The silence after it sounds too loud. He circles it in his notes, though you can't see the page. That one, he says quietly. Tell me about her. You grip the coffee cup until the paper seam splits. You hear the fabric of your voice stretch thin. She asked about the valley. He waits. And, you shake your head. That's all. He lets the statement rest. The silence now isn't punishment. It's precision. You realize he's weaponized quiet the same way altitude weaponizes air. Finally, he closes the notebook. We'll stop here. He reaches forward and presses the recorder off. The small red light dies. You exhale too soon, too audibly. He notices. One more thing, he says. When you looked down, did you see lights? You open your mouth to deny it, but your reflection speaks first. Lips moving out of sync with yours. The mirror fogs at its center briefly, like something breathing on the other side. You look away quickly. Just reflections, you whisper. From the instruments. He nods. Maybe. The hum fills the room again, patient and endless. The coffee's gone cold. Your pulse traces its rhythm against your wrist. You want to ask if you can go now, but you already know the answer. Outside the windowless wall, a plane might still be circling above a frozen valley. One that never made the report. One that lives only in the echo of static. You close your eyes, and for a second, you hear the altitude hold alarm click once before silence. The next morning, or maybe the same one, you can't tell, the light in the room shifts. It's not sunlight, not even day. Just a lower wattage, like someone turned the world down one notch. The interrogator sits in the same chair. Same wool shirt. Same unbroken patience. The coffee cup from yesterday still stains the table. The thin ring almost perfect. You trace it with your eyes but not your hands. He watches you notice it. He wants you to. Sleep? He asks. You shake your head. Didn't try. He nods, almost sympathetic. Sometimes it's better not to. The dreams come harder when you think you're ready for them. You want to answer, but the words settle in your throat and turn granular. He doesn't press. Not yet. He sets a small object on the table, a compass. Not yours, but close enough. It's old, scratched. Its glass fogged around the edges. This was found in the wreckage field, he says. About 30 miles from where the flight plan ended. You don't touch it. I didn't drop anything, you say automatically, though he hasn't accused you. He nods again. You said that before. Word for word. He flips a page in his notebook. The sound of paper turning feels louder than it should. We're going to do something simple today, he continues. I'll read back your earlier responses. You'll tell me if they still feel true. The tape recorder clicks on. The static hum becomes the air's heartbeat again. He begins. Visibility 2 miles. Descending snow. Stable. Yes, you say. You did not see the valley lights. Yes. You maintained heading. You hesitate. Yes. He looks up. Just long enough for you to feel the distance between your tone and your face. Your hands, he says softly. They moved when you said that. You glance down. Your right index finger still taps an invisible pattern. 4 beats. Pause. 2 beats. You flatten it against the table. You mentioned restraint, he continues. That the aircraft felt held. I did. What was holding it? You breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, counting to 4. The fluorescent hum feels closer now, like it's moved down a foot. Air pressure, you say. Wind shear. He waits. Or something else? He's looping again, you realize. The same phrasing, same tone. Looping is meant to tire you, to soften your sense of time until the distinction between memory and reconstruction disappears. You remind yourself of this like a mantra. It's procedural, not personal. But then he says her name, softly like a password. The compass needle trembles. You don't remember telling him that name. Maybe you didn't. Maybe the static did. She was seated behind you, he says, eyes still on the compass. She asked if you'd flown this route before. You said yes. You nod once. That's in the report. She asked if it was beautiful. You look up. Everyone asks that. He smiles faintly, and it isn't kind. And you said, only from a distance. He repeats your own words from last night. Perfect pitch. Perfect inflection. Your stomach knots. You recorded that? You said it. A silence opens between you, deep enough to fall into. Do you think she was afraid? He asks. I think. You stop. You were going to say I think I was. But that's not part of the record. I think she trusted me. He studies you. And you trusted what? You almost say, the instruments. But what comes out is, the pattern of snow. He blinks once, jotting that down. Snow. He says it like a foreign word. That's interesting. You shake your head. It's not. He doesn't argue. He lets silence expand again until you start to hate it more than the questions. You said before, he begins slowly, that you saw a diffuse light below the clouds. Yes. Would you describe it as moving? No. Would you describe it as signaling? The air in your chest tightens. No. He nods, not disappointed, not convinced. He sets the compass on its side, lets it roll. The glass wobbles, catches the overhead glow, spins a brief halo of light across the wall. An accidental echo of the light you remember, or dreamed, or invented. He stops it with one finger. That was the last position the instrument registered before the drop, he says, pointing north-northwest, the opposite direction of your reported heading. Your breath falters. Then it's broken. Maybe, he says, or maybe it's the only thing that wasn't. The hum returns to its steady pitch. Your reflection looks pale, translucent in the one-way glass. You feel watched by your own absence. Tell me what you heard after that, he says. Not what you saw, just sound. You close your eyes. Static. Engine noise. He waits. And you exhale. A voice. Just one. Whose? You open your eyes. The compass needle trembles again, then settles. I don't know, you say, though part of you does. He leans in slightly. The wool of his shirt rustles like wind through birch trees. What did it say? You search the room for a clock. There isn't one. Only the soft, rhythmic drip from the vent. It said, your voice trails, almost inaudible. It said, we're still above it. He writes that down. Above what? You shrug. The valley. When he looks up again, the compassion in his face has vanished. You realize the wreckage was below the valley floor? You say nothing. He stops the tape. The silence that follows isn't absence, it's pressure. You feel it behind your eyes, under your ribs. You're still not sure what you saw, he says. That's all right. Memory doesn't like cold. He stands, adjusts his cuffs, then leaves the room. The door shuts without sound. You stare at the compass, still tilted off-center. You want to reach for it, straighten it, but your hands stay in your lap. When the mirror breathes again, you whisper into it. Not to him, not to anyone listening, but to the silence that has followed you since that night. We were still above it. And for the first time, you wonder if you ever came down. The room has changed without changing. You can't name what's different, maybe the air, maybe the angle of the light, but it no longer feels neutral. There's a faint sweetness in it now, a trace of something organic, thawed, the kind of smell that belongs outdoors. You look for its source, but the walls give nothing away. When the door opens, the interrogator doesn't come in immediately. He lingers at the threshold, as if testing the air too. Then he steps forward, carrying a thin folder. No coffee this time. No small talk. He places the folder flat in front of you and doesn't open it. Before we go further, he says, I want to remind you that the goal isn't confession. It's clarity. You nod, but the word doesn't fit. Clarity feels distant. Something for people who still sleep. He opens the folder. Inside, a series of black and white photographs, printed from aerial recon. Grainy. Snow. Valleys reduced to texture. In one frame, a dark shape that might be metal or shadow or nothing. He slides it toward you. Do you recognize this pattern? You look closer. The dark line bends through the frame like a question mark. You think it might be the river, but it's too sharp. It's not the valley, you say. He nods. Correct. This was taken 50 miles north. The magnetic drift was that far off. You look up. So if your compass was working, he says quietly, you weren't where you thought you were. Your breath catches. That simple. That terrible. The sound of the tape recorder beginning again fills the gap. That steady spin like breath inside a machine. He watches you as you study the photograph. When did you first realize the readings didn't make sense? I didn't. He waits. I noticed, but I didn't think it mattered. The fluorescent hum becomes louder. It's joined by another noise now, a faint mechanical chirp from the heater vent. Rhythmic. 2 seconds apart. Drip. Click. Drip. Click. Tell me about the descent, he says. You look at your reflection instead of him. It wasn't a descent, you whisper. It was a pull. He leans forward slightly, the sound of his sleeve brushing paper. From what? You shrug, small and tired. It felt like gravity, but sideways. He doesn't write that down. He just looks at you longer than he should. You know, language like that usually shows up when pilots describe disorientation, he says gently. Spatial illusion, cognitive inversion. He's shifting into cognitive load again. Layered technical language meant to box you back into rational ground. The inner ear disagrees with the eyes, he continues. The mind fills gaps. I know what disorientation is. You interrupt. I trained for it. Then you know it doesn't feel real until it's over. You nod, but not in agreement. Or until you never come back. He lets the silence hang. You study his expression, trying to read the shape of his patience. He's too good at this, too calm, too measured. Every time he breathes, it's as if he's mapping the rhythm of your pulse. He's matching again, mirroring your stillness. It makes the air feel like a mirror itself. He finally speaks. The valley you described, was there light coming from it, or toward it? You hesitate. I'm not sure there was a difference. He blinks once, slow. Interesting phrasing. You stare down at the table, eyes tracing the faded ring from the old coffee cup. You ever fly over ice fields? You ask suddenly. They shine back at you. You start to think you're the reflection, not them. He writes something down, then stops mid-sentence. Reflection, he repeats, as if the word might break open a new angle. He stands, walks toward the mirrored wall. For a long moment he studies it, not his reflection but whatever's behind it. You can tell from the way his shoulders tense that someone's there. Then he turns back to you. They're ready for playback. Your stomach knots. Playback means evidence, and evidence means the parts you can't edit with silence. He presses a button on the recorder. The hiss begins. Then your own voice, distorted, disembodied, 419 descending, followed by another sound beneath it. A second voice, almost masked by static. He lowers the volume. We filtered it last night, he says. Listen carefully. The noise resolves barely. A whisper. Indistinct. Female. Calm. You can't make out words, only tone. Soft, certain. The sound pierces you in a way language never could. He stops the tape. Any idea who that might be? You swallow hard. No. Passenger. No. Your own voice overlapping? No. He watches your eyes for dilation. You can feel him counting. You're certain. You exhale slowly. You ever hear someone before they speak? He raises an eyebrow. You mean intuition? No. You say quieter. I mean echo. The fluorescent light flickers just once. The hum falters, then resumes. He doesn't react to the glitch. He just looks down at his notes. Let's set that aside, he says. Tell me again about your last visual. I told you already. Tell me again. You describe it. Clouds like torn gauze, light reflecting from nowhere, snow in the cabin's beam, the shape below that wasn't land but looked like it wanted to be. The way the instruments trembled without warning. You say it slowly, each word like a step on thin ice. When you finish, he sits back, steeples his fingers. You realize, he says softly, that none of this matches the radar record. You nod. Records are clean. People aren't. He almost smiles. Fair point. You expect him to close the file, end the session. But instead, he slides one of the photographs closer, this time a grainy close-up. At the far right corner, faint scratches. Letters. You recognize them before he says anything. Your initials, he says quietly. You don't speak. You stare until the shapes blur. Your throat tightens, but your body stays still. The contradiction is perfect. Calm above, collapse beneath. He doesn't push. He lets you choose whether silence means denial or memory. Finally, he gathers the papers and stands. We'll continue tomorrow. When the door shuts, you look again at the mirror. The reflection has caught the flicker of the light wrong. Your mouth seems to move a second late. You watch it whisper something you didn't say. The drip from the vent resumes. Click, drip, click, drip. You whisper to no one. We were still above it. The hum answers as if it's learned the words. He doesn't bring coffee. He brings time. The door clicks shut and he sits without speaking, as if words were a resource he plans to ration carefully. The fluorescent hum steadies to a low, medicinal thrum. Somewhere in the building, a pipe ticks as heat moves through it. 2 beats, then a softer third, like a habit it can't quit. You tell yourself you won't start talking just to stop those sounds from being the only voices in the room. Your mouth opens anyway. I wasn't off course, you say, though he hasn't asked. Not by 50 miles. He lifts one hand, palm down, a calming motion you've seen in briefings meant to bleed panic off a crowd. We'll test that, he says gently. Let's build the hour back, minute by minute. Cognitive load. You feel it arrive before he names it. He lays a legal pad in the exact center of the table, draws 3 parallel lines with an accountant's neatness. Timeline A, he says, tapping the top line, is your instrument record. B is radio traffic. C is sensory memory. He looks up. We'll keep them separate until they match. They won't match, you say. You aim for defiance. Comes out as prediction. He nods, accepting it as data, not challenge. All right, we'll see how they disagree. He writes, T-52. Cloud base, 2000. Visibility, variable. Quantify variable. Half a mile to 2. Wind direction? You hesitate. Quartering tail, then shifting. Degrees, 10 to 15. His pencil doesn't pause. Heading, 075. Actual or intended? You watch the pencil, its powdery whisper on paper. Intended. He slides the pad an inch closer to you. Say that again. Intended. You repeat, and hear the admission inside the word. The air takes on that faint metallic taste you noticed the first day. Ozone from the tape motor, winter's version of dust. The vent clicks once like a camera shutter. Your fingers flex against the table. You remind them to be still. He marks T-47. Describe the pull you mentioned yesterday. It wasn't a descent, you say. It was lateral, like the valley had edges and those edges had hands. He raises an eyebrow. Edges with hands. Not literally. Language is imprecise when air is certain. He murmurs, almost to himself. He writes anyway. Perceived lateral force. He lets the silence widen. A controlled burn. You watch the mirror for breath, for fog, for the trick you have started to expect and dread. Nothing shifts. The mirror stays a dark plate that holds you without reflecting you back correctly. You decide not to look again. Your eyes return to it on their own. Timeline B, he says. Radio. He rewinds a short section on the tape. Your voice arrives, thinned by metal and hiss. Holding altitude visibility dropping we're. The cut. The breath. The thing you haven't decided to call a voice. He lowers the volume and doesn't comment. What were you looking at when you said, we're? The attitude indicator, you answer too quickly. Then you add, horizon line, as if the addition makes the first answer truer. Needle behavior? Stable. Then tremor. What duration? Seconds. How many? 3. Seconds. 4. He doesn't smile. He just writes 3 to 4 and circles the hyphen like the point of contradiction itself. The smell shifts. The faint outdoor sweetness from yesterday returns, as if snow had melted somewhere it shouldn't and brought a trace of river with it. You think of glow the way you said it, then tried to edit it. You aren't going to use that word again. Your throat delivers it anyway. There was a glow. He tilts his head, mirroring yours. From below or within? Within, you say, and then, panicked by your own precision. No, below. Diffuse light. He notes both answers, arrows crossing like contrails that refuse to share a sky. Timeline C, he says quietly. Sensory. He taps the blank bottom line. You said the plane felt held. You said the cabin dimmed like snow dimming a city. You said a voice you couldn't place. He watches your face for the smallest betrayal. Do you still stand by those? You nod. The contradiction in you, calm posture, flooding chest, tightens to a fine wire. Who was the voice? He asks, and before you can refuse, he gives you a narrow corridor to walk. A list, no narrative. One word per option. You hate the tactic even as it offers relief. He is reducing memory into multiple choice to force your mind into corners. Cognitive load again, but with rails. You say, passenger. He nods. Instrument. He doesn't nod. Echo. He writes. Me. He looks up. Her. You hear the word and want to step on it, grind it into the floor. It just lies there, present and quiet, like frost on glass shaping letters you didn't carve but still recognize. He doesn't pounce. He marks her on the line like it's a coordinate, not a confession. Which her? He asks. From the manifest? You keep your face still. Your hand moves without permission. It drifts toward the folder from yesterday, the one with the aerials and the initials scratched in the corner of debris. You pull your hand back halfway, as if caught by turbulence you can't explain on the ground. Thought says no, muscle says touch. You flatten your palm. The paper still warms under your skin as if you'd placed it there. He pretends not to notice. You said something on day one that's been interesting me, he continues. You said the valley is beautiful only from a distance. His tone is careful, neutral. How far is a distance? You want to answer in miles. The room expects numbers. You give none. Far enough that you don't mistake your reflection for the ground. He writes that down slowly. You've been consistent on that point, he says. Reflection. Distance. Above. He underlines the last word, then leaves the pencil on the page, the line of graphite pointing at your chest. Say the sentence you keep saying. You don't want to give him the litany because you know what it does to you when it becomes sound. The fluorescent hum swells. The vent gives a small watery throat clearing. The mirror waits. You look at the compass on the table, no longer tilted, set true by someone else's hand. It is still trembling, almost imperceptibly, as if the room has a current. We were still above it, you say, and the words bloom cold in your mouth, the way metal does when you breathe on it. The room receives them. The mirror doesn't fog, but you feel the pressure change. He lets that sentence hover between the timelines, not assigning it to any of the three. Then tell me what it is, he asks. Not ground, you say. Not exactly. What then? Not the valley, you say. But the part the maps forget. He closes the pad softly. All maps forget something. The tape reels slow but keeps spinning, not recording anything, just measuring silence in circles. He stands and walks to the mirror. His breath does not mark it. He returns, sits, and slides the legal pad back to you. Take the pencil, he says, tone almost kindly. Mark where you think you turned. You don't move. You said you wouldn't touch the record, wouldn't co-author your own contradiction. Your fingers reach anyway, close around the wood, absorb the faint oil of other hands. You draw a small X at a bend in the top line, timeline A, instruments. Then another at the bottom line, timeline C, sensory. They are not in the same place. Good, he says, and his approval feels like a trap with cushions. Now mark the radio. You hesitate, then make a third X. It sits somewhere between the first two, closer to the sensory than to the instruments. A small truth you didn't plan to show. He studies the distances. That spread, he murmurs, is where the incident lives. The word incident carries no heat. It lands like paperwork. Still, you feel a narrow ache along your sternum, as if the word had edges. The pipe ticks again, 2 beats, then the softer third. The smell of ozone thins, replaced for a moment by the memory of wool and jet, by the metallic sweetness of a winter breath drawn through your teeth as the cabin lights seem to dim, not down, but inward. He caps the pencil and takes it back. We're done for now. You expect the relief to arrive. It doesn't. As he stands, the fluorescent light gives that tiny flicker you've started tracking. Your reflection lags a fraction of a second and then catches up. You tell yourself it's the ballast. Your eyes go back to the glass as if waiting for it to breathe. He reaches the door and pauses. Clarity, he says without turning. Not confession. Then, tomorrow we'll listen to the filtered track again. When he leaves, the room exhales. The tape reels spin down with a soft, furry whisper. The coffee ring from the first day has dried to a faint halo. A small valley of its own with brass pushpin edges only you can see. You slide your palm over it as if testing terrain with skin. We were still above it, you whisper. The vent answers with a single drip. The mirror holds the echo or invents it. You sit very still, thinking you will not move, and feel your heel begin to tap. 4 beats, pause, 2 beats. Writing the pattern in the chair's rung again, as if the floor needed a compass. The clock on the wall has no hands. You only notice this after an hour of pretending not to notice. The interrogator must have removed them, another quiet trick to stretch time until it frays. The air feels more weighted today, humid in a way that doesn't belong to Alaska. You wonder if they turned the heat up to see what you do under it. He enters without a folder this time, only a small cassette player. It's not the same recorder. This one's older, military issue. The casing is dented, paint rubbed to bare metal. He sets it on the table and doesn't press play. How's the head? He asks. Fine. You've got the look of someone who's been dreaming while awake. You almost smile. That's called being here. He doesn't argue. Instead, he sits down, folds his arms on the table. Different posture today, deliberate shift. Not mirroring. Breaking pattern. A small fracture to make you notice how comfortable you'd become with imitation. You try not to react. I want to start somewhere else, he says. Not the flight. Not the instruments. He opens a small notebook. Let's talk about before the takeoff. You blink. We've covered that. Not in your words. Just your answers. He glances at the mirror, then lowers his eyes. Why did you accept the flight assignment that night? I was next on rotation. Not according to the log. You hesitate. Someone called in sick. Name. You think for too long. Barnes. He shakes his head. Barnes was in Anchorage. You want to try again. The vent clicks twice, the same tempo as the tapping in your heel. The hum thickens around it, forming a soundscape like a memory rebuilding itself wrong. I don't remember, you say finally. He studies you. That's interesting. You remember cloud texture, compass drift, electrical smell, but not who called in sick. It wasn't important. Maybe not then. He pauses. Was she important? You look up sharply. Who? The woman behind you. You exhale through your nose. She was a passenger. He tilts his head. Not the first time you've used that word to make someone smaller. You don't answer. He leans forward. When did she start talking to you? After boarding. Where? At the gate. She recognized you? No. Then how did she start? She asked if I ever got tired of the valley. His pencil freezes mid-note. And what did you say? You stare at the table, at the faint halo of the coffee ring that never disappears. I said only from a distance. A pause. The hum underlines it. She asked if you believed in echoes. He says, voice too calm. You wrote that on your maintenance log. Line 8, back of the page. Echo delay. Increasing. Your pulse shifts. That was about radio signal. He nods slowly, as if giving you permission to believe that. He presses play on the old recorder. Not your voice this time. Air traffic control, distorted by static. Then silence. Then a faint voice under it, feminine, not mechanical. Still above it. The words bleed into you like memory rediscovering a pulse. You shake your head. You layered that. He doesn't flinch. It's untouched. He rewinds, plays it again. The whisper lands exactly between syllables, too precise to be accident. You grip the table edge. That's interference. From where? He asks softly. There was no second frequency on that channel. You look at the mirror too fast. The movement betrays you. He lowers the volume until it becomes a pulse beneath conversation. Tell me what you think she meant. I don't think she meant anything. People don't usually whisper into flight channels by accident. You take a breath. Maybe it wasn't a person. Then what was it? You close your eyes. Reflection. Radio bounce. The mountains talk back when it's cold enough. He writes nothing. Just lets the silence do its work. I've listened to this 23 times, he says at last. Each playback changes. Not the sound, the response. My response. Yes, yesterday you leaned in. Today you pulled away. So, bodies remember differently than words. He's right. Your shoulders ache as if from turbulence. Your knees remember the rudder pedals. Your eyes remember clouds made of salt, glittering like fractured mirrors. You force your hands flat on the table again. He looks down at the small cassette player, then back at you. You know, that model can record ambient sound if left on overnight. You glance toward the mirror. The implication lands like a heartbeat. You left it running. He doesn't confirm. He presses play once more. Not the flight. Not static. Breathing. Yours. Then faintly another. Closer than the mic should have caught. Two patterns of respiration nearly synchronized. I was alone, you whisper. He says nothing. The drip from the vent returns. It's louder now, like a metronome in slow motion. Each drop lands exactly between your heartbeats. He turns off the recorder. Tell me, he says softly. When did the air start feeling heavier in the cockpit? You look at him, really look. Right before the glow. He nods. And after. It didn't stop. He folds his hands. Neither has it here. For a long minute, neither of you moves. Then, quietly, he gathers his notebook, stands, and goes to the door. Before leaving, he says, tomorrow we'll bring the flight data in. Try to see if your glow has coordinates. When the door closes, you feel the weight remain. You turn to the mirror, half expecting breath. Nothing. Only your reflection, eyes unfocused, mouth half open, as if you've just whispered something you didn't hear yourself say. You exhale once, steady, and realize the air doesn't move. We're still above it, you say. The fluorescent light flickers twice like it agrees. You wake to the sound of paper sliding across metal. Not abruptly, softly, like someone feeding a note under a locked door. You're not sure how long you've been here now. The lights have never gone off. The same hum, the same dripping vent. But today there's something else. The faint scent of jet fuel. Old, ghostly. When the door opens, he's already speaking. We're going to try something different. He doesn't look tired, though you know he must be. His shirt is the same, maybe a different shade. Or maybe the light changed again. He sets down a small, sealed envelope. These are recovered fragments from the recorder, he says. Unlogged sections. I want to play them, but you'll tell me what you remember before you hear them. You stare at the envelope. The tape reels inside are black, smaller than they should be, warped slightly like something overheated. You think about metal fatigue, how even alloys can remember stress. I've told you everything, you say. He folds his arms. That's the problem. You've told me everything twice, 3 different ways. He tilts his head. Memory behaves like weather. It's always accurate for the moment it's forming, never for the moment it's recalling. He clicks the tape deck on. The machine hums, mechanical heart restarting. Let's see what the atmosphere remembers. The sound that comes out isn't a voice at first, just wind, a high, trembling pitch wrapped in static. Then, faintly, the radio tone that marked each altitude checkpoint. But they're wrong, out of order. 13, then 11. Then silence, then 15. A climb, not a descent. You whisper, that's not possible. He doesn't respond. He's watching your face, not the machine. The tactic now is silence again, forcing you to interpret sound aloud so your own words betray you. It's a playback glitch, you say. The reels are reversed. He rewinds 5 seconds, plays it again. Same order, same tone. Then a voice. Yours, unmistakably yours, whispering, still above it. Then another, barely audible beneath yours. Female, calm, measured. Only one phrase, not anymore. The air leaves your lungs in a single quiet breath. He doesn't pause the tape. He lets it run, the static washing the room in low, icy sound. When did you first hear that voice? He asks. I didn't, you say. You're hearing it now. That's playback distortion. He leans forward. Does distortion use your name? You freeze. He presses the rewind button, plays it again. Your voice, then hers, a breath between them, and then, clear as oxygen, your name, whispered like punctuation. Your throat goes dry. That wasn't the valley. He looks almost relieved. Good, he says. Then what was it? You don't answer. He clicks the recorder off. The silence that follows feels thicker than the hum itself. You can hear your own pulse in the base of your skull. He opens his notebook, flips to a blank page, and writes a single word. Convergence. He underlines it twice. I think what you saw, he says slowly, wasn't outside the plane. You stare at him. Then where? He taps his pen on the table. Inside. Between you and her. She was a passenger. He nods. Until she wasn't. Something in his tone makes you cold. What do you mean? He doesn't answer. Instead, he slides a photograph across the table. One you haven't seen before. It's the cabin interior. Rows of seats twisted by impact. Frost over everything. In the center, a single seat intact, untouched. Seat 4B. Her seat. The overhead lights buzz faintly. You stare until the image begins to ripple. You strapped her in yourself, he says. You logged it in your pre-flight check. That doesn't mean anything. She asked about the valley. He continues quiet. About the glow. And you told her not to worry. That you'd flown it 100 times. That you knew how to read the reflection. You shake your head, but the motion feels wrong, delayed. You didn't crash, he says finally. You landed. In the wrong place. And for a long time you thought you were still above it. You feel something shift in your chest. Not panic, not disbelief. Just the slow rearrangement of denial into recognition. He closes the photograph, folds his hands, and leans closer. She wasn't in the wreckage. Not anywhere. But the recorder, he taps the metal machine, carried both of your voices. The hum of the fluorescent lights merges with the static of the tape until you can't tell which is which. He lets a long silence pass, then says, Tell me what she said before the valley. You close your eyes. She asked if the sky ever gets tired of being mistaken for heaven. He writes it down once carefully. Then he stands. That's enough for today. When the door closes, you stay staring at the tape deck. The reels are still spinning, though the power light is off. In the reflection of the metal, you think you see two faces instead of one. The vent drips again. You whisper, Not anymore. The machine clicks twice, as if agreeing. When the door opens this time, you're already awake, though you're not sure you slept at all. The hum hasn't changed pitch. The vent still drips in rhythm. Only the air feels different now, heavier, like altitude at sea level. The interrogator stands just inside the doorway, watching you the way someone watches a candle to see if it will flicker. You've stopped asking what time it is, he says. You look up. You took the clock. I took nothing, he replies. You stopped looking. He sets a folder on the table. Thicker than the last, corners bent, paper edges frayed. This is everything we have now, he says. Every sound, every log, every transcript. It doesn't add up. Maybe you can help. You wait. He doesn't open it. The silence between you grows until you can hear his breathing again. Slow, steady, matched to yours. Rapport, but closer now, as if he's syncing your pulse to his. You can't tell if it's deliberate. He finally opens the folder. Inside are 12 sheets, each labeled with a timestamp and a single phrase. He reads the first aloud. Midnight, we were still above it. Then the second. 003, it's not the valley. Then the third. 006, the reflection moves first. He looks at you. These were all recovered from your voice. None of them were spoken on the radio channel. You frown. Then how? Exactly, he says. So tell me. Where did these recordings come from? You don't answer. The question feels wrong, like it doesn't belong to time. He slides one page forward. Read it. You scan the text. 009, don't look down. The words feel familiar. You hear them, not as memory but as echo. You'd said them once, to someone behind you, or to yourself. He watches the recognition flicker through you. That one bothers you, he says softly. No. Then read the next. 012, seat 4B is empty. The air moves through your chest like static through wire. That's not right, you whisper. Explain. She was there. Until when? You close your eyes. Until after the glow. The vent clicks once, twice. The rhythm is off now, irregular, like breath catching. He leans back. Tell me what happened after it. I don't know. Then tell me what didn't happen. You think of the snowfield, the impossible stillness, how sound refused to travel. We didn't fall, you say quietly. We just stopped moving. He writes that down, then underlines stopped moving. You've said that before, he says. Every time, you change what it means. I'm tired, you say. That's when truth shows up. He studies you for a moment, then sets the notebook aside. His eyes soften, the smallest crack in procedure. You know, he says, when I was a child, my father flew cargo routes over the Bering Strait. He said the sky there was different. Said sometimes the horizon disappears and you can't tell which way is down. You nod. Wide-out illusion. He said it made him feel like he was flying through memory instead of weather. You look at him then, and for the first time he doesn't look like an interrogator. He looks like someone who has also been above it, whatever it is. He clears his throat. Let's try something, he says. Close your eyes. You hesitate. It's procedural, he assures you. Just breathing. You close them. The fluorescent hum softens, replaced by the quieter rhythm of your pulse. I want you to picture the cockpit, he says. Not as it was, but as it is. You do. The switches, the frost on the windshield, the faint glow of the instruments, the hum of the cabin air. Now, he continues, look at the seat beside you. You see it immediately, empty, buckles hanging, the shape of someone who used to be there pressed into the cushion. What do you see? He asks. You answer before you can lie. Light. Where? Everywhere. Moving. No. Alive. You pause. Remembering. He lets the silence draw itself out until it feels infinite. Then, softly, what does it remember? You open your eyes. The light in the room flickers once. For a heartbeat, you could swear the reflection in the mirror moves before you do. It remembers she didn't scream, you say. He writes nothing. He doesn't have to. You continue, slower now. It remembers that I looked back, and she wasn't there. The seat was still warm. I thought she'd fallen asleep. You look down at your hands. They're trembling, barely, like the compass needle. I kept flying. I thought if I kept flying, I could keep her there. He watches you with an expression that's almost pity. And when you landed, your mouth is dry. I didn't. He doesn't blink. Where did you go? You almost laugh. I'm still there. He exhales. That's why you keep saying it. The fluorescent hum deepens again, as if the room understands. He closes the folder. Tomorrow, we'll verify the data against the ground radar. As he stands, the air in the room seems to thin, as though altitude has returned. He reaches for the door but pauses, hand on the frame. If you hear her again tonight, he says, don't answer. When he leaves, the silence feels alive. You look at the mirror. The reflection stares back, patient, unspeaking. Then, faintly, the glass fogs. 2 words form, written in breath. Look down. You step back. The vent drips once. You whisper, no. The fog fades, but the words remain in your head, bright as frostlight. The day doesn't start anymore. It just resumes. The hum is still there. The drip from the vent still counts time. You measure your world in frequencies now, how sound wavers, how silence bends. He enters quietly, almost tentative this time, holding a narrow silver case. Inside, you glimpse the black curve of a headset and a small reel labeled simply CVR/419, restored. He sets it on the table between you. We cleaned the final channel, he says. Cockpit voice recorder. Last 20 seconds before signal loss. You stare at it, unsure whether to be afraid or grateful. You think this will help? He shrugs. Maybe it'll end the loop. He means the phrase "we were still above it." You've said it in every session in different tones: apology, defense, mantra. Sometimes you don't remember saying it at all. He plugs in the headset, adjusts the volume. "You'll listen first," he says. "Tell me when you're ready." You nod. Place the headphones over your ears. The sound is faint at first, wind through a broken seal, the muted click of switches. Then your voice, calm, procedural. 419 maintaining altitude 6000. The tone is flat, professional, utterly certain. Then a noise, low, layered. Could be wind shear, or it could be language you've forgotten how to translate. A pause. Then her voice, quiet but close, inside the headset rather than over it. "You can let go now." You rip the headphones off. The sound doesn't stop. The same words hang in the room, muffled but audible through the recorder itself. "You can let go now." He doesn't move. "I heard it too," he says. You shake your head. "That's not possible." "Neither is surviving a crash from 6,000 feet, he says, evenly. The words fall into the room like snow. Soundless. Cold. He lowers the recorder's volume. What did she mean? You force a laugh that isn't laughter. She meant nothing. She meant static. He opens the notebook, writes one word. Static. Then, beneath it, familiar. "Every time we play a section," he says, "you recognize her. Even if you won't say her name." You press your palms flat against the table. The steel is warm. You hate that it's warm. "Her name doesn't matter," you say. "Then say it." You look away. "Emily." The name leaves your mouth like frost, evaporating before it can settle. He repeats it quietly. "Emily Ross." The fluorescent hum shifts pitch. Something behind the mirror seems to inhale. "She was a flight attendant before Alaska," he says. "Transferred routes in 1981. Applied to your line twice." You shake your head, eyes closed. "That's not true." He slides a photocopy across the table. A job application, creased, faint signature. Her handwriting sharp, deliberate, too familiar. You exhale through your teeth. "She said she loved the cold." "She loved you," he says. You don't look up. He softens his tone, voice nearly kind. "You told her you'd teach her the valley route. That the snow wasn't dangerous if you stayed above it." You whisper, "I told her a lot of things. She followed you onto that flight. She wasn't scheduled." "I know." That stops him. You lift your head, and the words come slower now, shaped by the exhaustion of remembering. "She wanted to see the aurora from altitude. Said the light looks different when you're close to the magnetic line. Said it feels alive." You pause. "She was right." He waits. "She asked if reflections can dream." You continue. "I told her only if someone's watching." The silence that follows feels sentient. The mirror seems to breathe again. He writes nothing now. His voice is softer than before. "When the light started." "She stood up," you interrupt. "Unbuckled before the signal. Said she saw something outside the glass. Said it looked like us." He leans forward. "Like you too." "No," you say. "Like we were already there." He doesn't answer. He's watching the tremor in your hands, the fine quiver of recognition. "You said the valley pulled you," he murmurs. "Maybe it wasn't pulling down." You nod, eyes unfocused. "It was pulling through." The fluorescent hum drops to a low drone. For a second, you swear it's the same pitch as the engine tone from the flight. He closes the notebook, slowly. "We found something else in the debris field," he says. "An oxygen mask. Your fingerprints and one more partial. Female. The material around it burnt but not from fire. More like electrical discharge." You stare at him, unable to form the next sentence. He continues, quieter now. "If the recorder captured both your voices after the transponder died, maybe it wasn't just the plane talking." You shake your head. "You think I'm haunted." He doesn't deny it. "I think echoes need bodies to survive." You press your hands to your face. The world behind your eyelids flickers green. Aurora light, memory light, reflection light. He watches, waits. When you lower your hands, your reflection in the mirror lags again, half a breath behind. You both speak at once. We were still above it. The sound overlaps perfectly, your voice and something under it, female, patient. The fluorescent light pops once, plunges the room into dim amber. You can see your reflection better now. Her outline where yours should be. He stands, fast. Stay with me, he says. But the voice feels distant, underwater. You blink once. The hum stops. And for the first time, there's real silence. Silence doesn't stay. It returns to a hum the way snow returns to water. The lights stutter back to a low, winter orange, and the vent resumes its patient drip, as if the room refuses to let an ending be an ending. You lower your hands from your face and find them steady, though your chest says otherwise. Calm on the surface, undertow beneath. The contradiction stands up in you like a person. He is standing too, one palm out, not quite touching the table. You're here, he says. Stay with me. His voice has lost its laboratory polish. It's warmer now, rough at the edges, the way speech gets when it believes itself. We're going to anchor the moment, all right? He slides the headset away, as if removing a flare from dry brush. You nod because nodding is easy. Your neck moves. Your mind continues in its orbit. A slow circle above a valley that is sometimes land and sometimes light. We'll run an alignment, he says. Cognitive load again, but this time with guardrails that feel padded, like the corners of a room made safe for someone who keeps walking into them. He draws 3 short columns on a fresh page. Body, sound, word. When you feel something shift, put it somewhere. Don't explain. Just place it. You say nothing, but your hand reaches for the pencil. You don't plan to take it. You take it anyway. Behavior laps thought. He notices and doesn't smile. Close your eyes, he says. Count 4 in, 6 out. Rapport returns, not imitation but cadence. He breathes with you but half a beat later, giving you the lead. He's mirroring by not mirroring, a subtler trick, the kind that lets your nervous system pretend it found its own way back. The orange light warms the steel table. Ozone softens to dust and paper, the narrow, papery scent of old envelopes. Somewhere, you swear you smell jet fuel again, but quieter, like memory after rain. The vent's drip falters, catches, resumes. Describe where your eyes go first, he says. Left. Your voice comes out even like you practiced this line when they left you alone. Down the panel across the compass. The needle shouldn't be moving. Is it? Yes. You open your eyes. The compass on the table trembles as if it heard you from another room. You swallow. It's not hooked to anything. Bodies move when rooms lie, he says. Put that under body. You mark a small X. He waits, then sets his pencil down. I'd like to show you something, he says softer. He reaches for the silver case, lifts out a second tape you hadn't noticed. The label is handwritten, 419, cabin loop. He doesn't press play. He just lets you read the words until they feel like air. What is it? You ask. Ambient. He studies your face. No voices, only the cabin. I want to see if the room itself is carrying the echo. He glances at the mirror, as if asking permission of whatever calls it a wall. He plays 10 seconds. Air flows. A heater tone not unlike the hum above you. A click, the seatbelt sign. And then a small sound that could be plastic cooling or a person refusing to cry. It walks the border perfectly. Not confession, not evidence. You feel something pull well below your language. Stop, you say, before you decide to say it. He does. The silence that falls is not the big one from before. It's usable, elastic. Tell me what you just did, he says. I asked you to stop. And why? Because she wasn't there. Surprises you how quickly that arrives. Because the seat was warm and the belt was latched and I couldn't find a shape to count. You press the pencil into the paper hard enough to leave a bruise. Because if the cabin keeps sounding like someone is about to stand, I'll stand. He nods once and writes approach avoid in the margin, the polite term for a nervous system trying to live in two directions at once. Good, he says, and you want to hate that word and can't. He changes posture, elbows off the table, shoulders squared. The gentle is gone. The tactic turns. Looping begins not with words, but with space. He pushes his chair back precisely the distance your chair slid forward. You feel yourself fill the room he made and wish you hadn't. He has measured your reach. When you said her name, he begins. What changed? The air, you say. How? Heavier, you answer. Like altitude at sea level. He nods toward the mirror. And when you hear, you can let go now. Who's that sentence for? My hands, you say. Then, quieter, both of us. The fluorescent ballast ticks, a single dry insect sound. You glance at the compass. The needle steadies, then quivers again, as if embarrassed. You've been refusing a simple experiment, he says, voice now flat with procedure. I think it's time you try it. You look at him. What experiment? Look down. The words strike hard enough that the coffee ring on the table seems to darken. The echo of glass-breathed letters from last night climbs the back of your throat. You don't move. He doesn't soften. Not metaphor. Now. He sets both his hands, palms down, in the center of the table, a posture that denies trickery. You're safe in this room. Do what you wouldn't do in the cockpit. You have rehearsed not looking for days, for years, for the length of an unending second. Your body won't move. Your chin drops. The metal doesn't offer you. It offers the halo, the brass pins of the valley made ghost by a map's afterimage, the reflection of an amber light bent into an ellipse. And then, behind the faint rim of condensation your own breath draws, a fog you didn't make. Two fingerprints, separate side by side, as if placed there at the very beginning and only now revealed. You jerk back, chair scraping. No, he doesn't look at the prints. He watches you watching them. Contradiction, he says quietly. You said you wouldn't move. You moved. You hate him for being right in a way that also keeps you from drowning. He brings his voice down a half step. Tell me the sentence. The one you used to keep the plane in the air. We were still above it, you whisper, and the room accepts the offering. The fingerprints don't fade. They were never fog. They are oil. Old. He slides a clean cloth across the table. Wipe them, he says, and you understand the tactic. Compliance to reset ownership. A small command to invite a larger truth. You reach out and stop halfway. Thought says obey. Muscle says consecrate. You lower your hand and do nothing. He doesn't force it. Then don't, he says. Let them stay. He leans back, opens the folder of timestamps again, and taps one entry you haven't seen. 018. Don't answer. He sets the paper where you can't not see it. Last session, he says. I told you the same. Did you? I tried. Try now. He nods toward the recorder. He doesn't press play. He waits. The vent's drip lands a fraction late, then catches the beat. The hum thins until you can pick out the ghost of the cabin heater under it. Your heater, your day, your loop. Something gathers at the edge of hearing. You know precisely how her voice will fit inside it. You feel your mouth open to meet it. You close it. Nothing breaks. Nothing explodes. The room remains a room. The tape remains a rectangle of patient plastic. The fingerprints remain fingerprints. He watches your throat relax and lets his own shoulders fall a fraction, like a diver who surfaces to find the water held. Good, he says, almost a whisper. Again. Silence becomes an instrument. You hold it careful as glass. Minutes, maybe hours, form and unform. Your heel writes 4 beats, pause, 2 beats, then stops of its own accord. The compass needle settles. The amber light steadies. You don't say the sentence. You let the echo pass by without feeding it. Above is above. Below is below. For one clear breath, there is no between. He doesn't smile. He caps his pen. He says only, tomorrow we walk the valley on the map. You'll choose the distance. As he reaches the door, your reflection moves with you. Only you. The mirror stays a mirror. No breath writes instructions. The hum falls back to the level of electricity minding its business. You look down once more. The prints are still there. You let them be. They were still above it. You say, not a plea, not a defense, only weather. Then you let even that go. The valley comes to you before you can go to it. It always does. You open your eyes to a table covered in thin papers, each one bearing a hand-drawn curve. Contours, drift paths, cross-sections of terrain. The map he promised has been waiting all night. He stands behind it, jacket on this time, breath visible in the colder air. We'll walk it, he says. On paper first. Then, if it holds, in your head. You nod. The light in the room is almost blue now, morning maybe, or just a different bulb. The hum has deepened into a low, steady pulse that reminds you of engines throttled back. He places a finger on the upper edge of the map. Here's the ridge. You said you held 6,000. I did. Then what's this line? You follow his finger down to a jagged dip in graphite. Thermal pocket. Wind shear. Could be, he agrees. Or the moment your mind started making weather of memory. He lets that hang there. You trace the valley with your eyes. There's a small mark halfway through. A smudge of ink shaped like an eye. You don't remember putting it there. Distance, he says. How far between where you thought you were and where the wreckage was found? 32 miles. Show me. You draw your finger across the paper. He watches, silent, waiting for you to notice the thing he already has. The path curves back toward its own beginning. That can't be right, you whisper. Echo navigation, he says. Every correction doubles the error. You turn toward your own reflection until you believe it's progress. He folds the map once, twice, then opens it again. The crease runs straight through the valley. That's the seam, he says. Above it, memory. Below it, record. He hands you a pencil. Mark where she vanished. You stare at the graphite point, the pale valley, the thin blue shadow of his hand over both. You want to draw an X. Instead you draw a circle. He doesn't correct you. Circles are fine, he murmurs. They tell us something wants to return. The vent drips once, then stops completely. The silence feels like pressure again, the kind that makes your eardrums ache. Do you hear it? He asks. What? The absence. You close your eyes. In the quiet, you can almost hear the faint vibration of the flight deck, the rattle of loose charts, the whisper that wasn't static. You can let go now. You open your eyes. It's still there, you say. He nods. It will be, until you give it coordinates. He slides the map closer. Where does above end? You hesitate, then place the pencil at the top of the crease. Here. And below. You move it half an inch down. Here. He studies the space between the marks. That's not distance, he says. That's altitude. Exactly the difference between your last reported level and the valley floor. He looks at you. You remember the moment you stopped transmitting? Yes. Describe it. You take a breath. There was no warning. No sound of descent. Just less air. How long? Seconds. Maybe less. What did you feel? Weight. Then none. He writes weightless on the margin of the map. Bodies sometimes tell the truth memory edits out. He says, weightlessness can feel like peace or like absence. Which was it? You stare at the line you drew, the circle, the crease, the narrow space between. Both. He closes the folder, slides it aside. That's what she said too. Your head lifts. You spoke to her? Not exactly. He taps the recorder still resting at the edge of the table. The final data burst. There's a voice right before the power drop. Yours overlaps it. He presses play. Static. Then two words, layered. Still above. He stops the tape. Not you alone. You lean forward. Then who? He lowers his voice. Who do you think taught you the sentence? You blink. For a moment the room tilts, the walls receding like cloud banks. The fingerprint marks on the table gleam under the cold light. She told me. You whisper. He nods. And you believed her. You believed that as long as you kept saying it, neither of you would fall. You can feel the air thin again, your body remembering altitude. We didn't fall. No, he says. You just never stopped descending. You look at the mirror. For the first time, it reflects both of you clearly. No lag, no fog. Just two figures, one seated, one standing. But the one seated isn't moving, and the eyes are open too wide. You stand abruptly. The chair legs screech. He doesn't move. What do you see? He asks. You can't answer. The words are caught between denial and recognition. The reflection blinks out of sync, late by one heartbeat. Then it smiles faintly with her mouth. The lights flicker again, once, twice. The map lifts in the brief wind from the vent restarting, edges fluttering like wings. He whispers, "Stay above it." The reflection whispers, "Let go." You close your eyes and for the first time feel both voices as one. The hum returns to normal. The vent drips again. The reflection corrects itself. The map lies still. He exhales. That's enough. You sit back down slowly. The circle on the map has darkened where your hand pressed. Perfect ring of graphite. Not an X. Not a grave. Just orbit. He caps his pen. One more session, he says quietly. Then we see what's left to tell. You nod. The light hums. The air settles. Somewhere outside this room, a frozen valley waits. Endless, white, patient. You're still above it. For now. You can tell it's the last session before he even says it. The hum feels thinner, stretched out to its limit, like the building itself has been holding its breath for too long. The fluorescent light has dimmed to the color of unlit snow. The room smells faintly of metal and dust, but the coffee ring on the table is gone. Someone cleaned it while you were gone, or while you were still here. He's waiting. No folder, no tape machine, no pen this time. Only the map between you, folded once along the valley seam. The fingerprints still faintly visible near the edge of the table, the compass beside them. He says, "Today we just talk." You nod. Your voice feels borrowed when you answer. About what? Not what happened. Not the wreckage. Just the part that stays. He sits forward, hands clasped. You said before that weightlessness felt like both peace and absence. I want to know which one you're choosing now. You look at the mirror, but it doesn't respond. Can I choose both? You can, he says. But one will always turn into the other. The vent doesn't drip anymore. The silence feels clean, purposeful. He gestures toward the compass. You ever notice, he says, how a compass never points where you are, only where you aren't? You watch the needle tremble, then steady north. Maybe that's the point. Maybe. He studies you. You think you stayed in the valley? Or that the valley stayed in you? You don't answer right away. Both. You say finally, I think I brought it back. He doesn't write that down. He just nods once, as if that was what he expected. There's something different in his face now. Not pity, not satisfaction. Just fatigue, the quiet kind that happens when you've been breathing someone else's air too long. You ready to listen? He asks. To what? He reaches under the table, brings up a small device. A single reel already spinning, though you didn't hear it start. The sound that emerges isn't wind or static this time. It's quiet, too quiet. Then faintly, the hum of your own voice from the earlier sessions, looping. We were still above it. The sentence repeats once, then stops. Then another voice, hers. It's time to come down. He watches your eyes as you hear it. We isolated that line last night, he says softly. It's there, beneath your channel. Same pattern, same breath rate. You close your eyes. The sound doesn't fade. It moves inward, echoing under your ribs, like a heartbeat that isn't yours. He lowers the volume. You can keep believing you're still flying, he says. Or you can land. The story ends either way. You open your eyes. The mirror shows only you now. For the first time, the lag is gone. The reflection moves with you, not ahead, not behind. You say, if I land, what happens to her? He hesitates. Echoes don't die, he says. They just stop needing a mouth. You nod slowly. The light hum deepens once more, the same pitch as the cabin air at altitude. I thought I could hold her, you whisper. Keep her above it. But the truth is I never left the descent. He exhales. Then you know what to do. You look down at the map. The circle you drew is darker now, the graphite burnished smooth by your palm. You press your thumb to the center. It leaves a faint print, one more fingerprint in a room full of them. She's not cold, you say. No, she's not gone. She's waiting. You stand. Your knees ache, your pulse slows. The walls no longer hum. They breathe. He doesn't stop you when you walk to the mirror. You lift your hand to it, expecting fog. None forms. Only glass. She's in the reflection, you say. Maybe, he says. You smile just barely. Then maybe that's where I'll meet her. He opens his mouth, maybe to protest, maybe to agree, but no sound comes. The lights flicker once, then hold. You whisper the last sentence without fear. We were still above it. The mirror gives back only silence. No echo, no breath, just you. He stands, gently clicks the recorder off. The reels stop. For a long moment, neither of you speaks. Then he says, quietly, that's altitude enough. You nod, and for the first time in days or years, the hum stops meaning anything. Outside, somewhere beyond this room, the valley is just geography again. The story doesn't end with a confession. It ends with a kind of release that doesn't need words. The valley, the light, the hum. They were all versions of the same silence waiting to be heard correctly. You leave the room the way you entered it. One slow breath at a time, measuring the world in sound and stillness. Behind you, the tape lies quiet, a thin thread of magnetized memory holding everything that refused to fall. Ahead of you, the hallway is washed in the same amber light that once filled the cockpit. Feels less like descent and more like rest. Outside, wind moves across a landscape that doesn't remember names. Snow gathers in places the map forgot to mark. Somewhere, a compass needle steadies, pointing not north but simply away. You imagine her voice one last time. Not calling, not warning, just existing where sound becomes quiet. You answer it by doing nothing, by letting the world turn without you for a while. Above or below no longer matters. The valley isn't waiting. It's finished speaking. And for the first time since Flight 419 vanished over the ridge, you understand what she meant. You can let go now.